landings have appeared. The evidence is all around. Buddha's Bodhisattva's here. The atmosphere is changing now. Pure landings have appeared. The evidence is all around. Buddha's Bodhisattva's here. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Wisdom surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your grace. Your power surrounds us. We're the reason you came. Grant your blessings, your name. Bestow your mercy. The power of your great vow can empower us now. Bestow your mercy. Great holy beings, fall fresh on us. We need your presence. Your kingdom come, your will be done, here as in heaven. Your light surrounds us. 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 Your light surrounds us.
There are different kinds of meditations and different types of meditations that actually help us to pass through barriers to be able to enter in different realms or states of reality. That's why you don't have to feel bad when you don't understand something or you can't enter into it. You just know that you haven't entered into that state or that level of understanding to be able to function, from that perspective. And so we can have patience with ourselves when we don't even rise to our own mark. This is how we end up not being frustrated or not being impatient with ourselves or not being or feeling depressed or like we're never going to attain or we're never going to make it. But we can always stay encouraged because we have understand that in order to function at a certain level of attainment, one has to enter a certain state. And so it helps us also to be patient with others. It helps us to be able to roll with the punches, to deal with the vicissitudes of life. It helps us to be able to really grow because we don't take correction so personally. We should take it personally, but not in that kind of way that makes us feel like our feelings are hurt, but in a way that it's like my help is coming now because now I have an instruction. I have a way in which to go, and knowing that that's going to lead me towards my great wish, my ultimate goal. And so our whole relationship with instruction begins to shift and change. Our whole relationship with discipline building, our whole relationship with correction, our whole relationship with clear seeing without holding some kind of a grudge. Who are you? It will enable you when someone comes and makes what in the past you have felt like was a criticism or correction, you will see it in a different way because your heart is more in tune with where you're trying to go as opposed to where you presently are, you see. And so that doesn't really have a lot to do with anybody outside of us. That has to do with our own thinking and how we govern our own mind and how we understand and hold the teachings and how much respect and appreciation and gratitude we have for the teachings in our life, that it can help us turn right side up what's upside down. And it can help us to plug up the leaky holes, and it can help us wash the pot that's full of spoiled meal. And so our whole relationship with our path begins to shift. It begins to change. And the Dharma becomes almost like when I was a Christian, we would talk about how Jesus was a friend who sticks closer than any brother. So when I was a child, 5 or 6 years old, I had two brothers. And I could rely on my brothers to protect me. They were my older brothers, and I could rely on them to protect me. Um, I could not only rely on them to protect me, but they were also like my friends. So there was a kind of relationship we had that was not just them protecting me or taking care of me. There was a kind of love that I knew they had for me, that they would do anything for me. And I could come to my brothers and I could tell them anything, not so much so with my sisters, but with my brothers, I could. So that particular scripture had some meaning for me. I could place it in my life. Sometimes we can't place something in our life and we have to work on it. I had a completely different relationship with my mother. So when we started talking about in Buddhism, like all sentient beings are like my mother, I'm like, I hope not. because that part of my life needed some work. Um, but in time, I came what I could trust the Dharma to give me some opening and some awakening about. I began to be able to apply that to what I could not um, open or trust it with. So, because I could trust and understand about relationship with my brothers, but not with my mother, I began to just say, well, the Dharma is reliable, and but I hold my relationship with my mother differently than I hold my relationship with my brothers. But if the Dharma is true, I should be able to cultivate the same kind of trust in the Dharma to make me safe with my mother that I have with my brothers. And so I began to do that work, trusting that the Dharma that I had discovered so far was true and trustworthy for me. I knew I couldn't trust my memory because my memory would tell me I had to relate, to her in a different kind of way. But the Dharma was telling me that I could change how I viewed everything if I could see it through the lens of the Dharma. In other words, if I could wash my mind, Shakyamuni said, he abused me, he beat me, he robbed me. Those who harbor such thoughts in them, hatred will not be appeased. He abused me, he beat me, he robbed me. Those who harbor such, those who harbor such thoughts, it may be true, but if you harbor such thoughts, your hatred will not be appeased. But if it's true, but you don't harbor the thoughts, then the hatred will be appeased. So it let me know that I had a superpower. I had a capacity to overrule and override the pain and the torment that I was suffering or experiencing because I was harboring a true thought. She abused me, she beat me, a true thought. But to dwell on it would only increase my hatred, my anxiety, my fear. So, so the Dharma does that for us. It begins to teach us another way to see and hold circumstances that we can find our freedom, even if the other person is still bound. And that's the kind of confidence that we develop in the Dharma over time. But the only way that we can have it is that we have to cultivate it. We have to develop it. We have to do it. The Dharma just doesn't come and don't give us a dispensation. We ourselves have to apply, we have to put into practice. That's what cultivation is. It requires doing something. And when do you do these things? When you don't want to, when you don't feel like it, when the mind is speaking to you in another way. Remember what they did, remember what they said. Oh, that's their personality. You see how they act. When the mind is speaking that to you, he says you have to have filled your mind with some other kind of aspiration to give hope to a change in the external condition. And so we have different types of meditations that we do that are designed to do different things, to work with us on different levels. The least level is working on the mind through analysis, because analysis relies upon recall. We live in a world that's based on memory. So our recall is going to be however we thought about something or however we understood something, we will recall it in that way. And we will continue to solidify our impression of whatever transpired by constantly recalling. And we not only recall it mentally, we recall it physically, because it gets all in this mind body. It's all together. And so we batten down and further. If it caused me pain, this will cause me more pain. If it caused me pleasure, I still think in terms of pleasure, even when the pleasure is really not there. But because this is a world that relies upon recall, I still find some kind of pleasure when the pleasure is not really there. That's why people who um, live with abusers continue. Didn't start off as an abuser, it looked like love, it smelled like love, it tasted like love. It was love, but somewhere along the line, some kind of control factor uh, finds its way in there, and now it's no longer love, but you just say, oh, but she loves me, oh, but he loves me, because we're relying upon a false construction that has been solidified by memory. So when we first started meditating, we started working to just understand that. And one way we do it is by sitting and beginning to try to allow the mind to face reality, to let something be just like it is. So meditation is not like emptying the mind. You meditate when the mind is empty, but because we have it backwards, we don't reach the mind states that are available. And so the first thing we have to do is begin to understand that for meditation to even present itself, or to uh, come into our view, to come into our awareness, is we have to see the conditionality of everything and understand the laws by which we function in this phenomenal world. So that's the first part. And Westerners love that part, because we love getting into our mind. We love having our conversations. That's our thing. That's our thing. But, in the East, they could make a little bit more progress because their society and their culture, in some ways, not always, when we see something that's like we could use a little bit more of that, a bigger taste of that, that's a little bit better for us, then we just throw everything into the pot, and now we just close our eyes. I mean, some of the most misogynistic, countries in the world are Buddhist countries. So don't say that because they learn Buddhism, they're not misogynistic. That means you just haven't done your homework. Um, but in general, people have a greater sense of community or good-heartedness, um, simply because those countries are not so individualistic oriented, so it's not so much me, my, and mine. And they think more in terms of what's how the have a kind of group consciousness that we could do with a little bit more of. We don't have to take the whole thing, but we could take a little bit more of it. And they start when they're children with this, Uh, and so as when conditions come up, and then also because they don't have quite the affluence that we have, we may not feel affluent, but some of the places in this world, if if you've never had a chance to go, you should, because it will change how you um, understand the extraordinary privilege and good fortune on that side to be born, in the United States. Now, personally, you know, I'm on the other side of that equation. I don't, sometimes I think that because of our history and our culture, that if there's a hell realm on earth, like we're sort of like in the center of it right here. But that's just where I am on the path and what I need to see and what I need to work on. We're all at different stages of the path. Now we want there to be just the stage, and what stage is that? The stage I'm on. That's what we want. But we're all at different stages. That's why we don't have time. We don't have time to try to get all into other people's stuff and other people's business. Not, we only have time to focus on ourselves and what stage of the path we're on and what it is that we need, because we understand others through understanding ourselves. And we always want to help somebody or save somebody or do something for somebody, but we can only do it to the extent, we used to talk about mind wrapping, and that the city power of reading the minds of others, and I will tell you that it's not so much about we don't understand what the words mean. It's not so much about having the power to read somebody else's mind, but it's when your mind is clear, when your mind is still, then you have more of a connection with the other. There's more, not just empathy, but there is more direct knowing of another person. I just say the person in their entirety. So they might say one thing, but you perceive something different. you know um it could be, you can perceive that they are hurting, and so that's why they're holding to a particular view. You could perceive that they just don't have the understanding, that's why they hold to a particular. You could perceive that they come through a circumstance that doesn't allow at this time for them to apply what's needed in this situation, which is mercy. You could perceive, but there is the availability of that knowing, but only when one's own mind is known. So this is about knowing our own mind. So we start with giving simple instructions like breathe in and breathe out, just to kind of bring us from out here sort of closer to ourselves to in here, just to turn the focus inward. That's one of my favorite songs that our choir does, because as soon as I turn my mind to it, the atmosphere is changing now. No, I will that to be so by what I choose to focus on. And even though I might have outer circumstances, like even right now, I'm a little bit sick. But and I can be aware of that sickness. I can feel it. I can be overcome by it sometimes. But the minute I refocus my attention or change my attention, then I begin to draw upon the energy that is inherent in what my mind is resting on. And so I find a strength. Now that's a kind of a power. I find a strength that where the mind goes, the energy flows. And one is able then to draw upon that for your sustenance. This is a real thing. It's what I'm telling you. And so when we think something has happened to us, we just can't get over it. Like, I just can't let that one go. You know, actually, we can. But that's not always at the beginning level of our practice, because our mind has not been trained, has not been disciplined to turn in that particular way. So first we get some understanding about the mind, like whatever you think and ponder on, it becomes the inclination of your mind. And we start with baby steps. We start with little things, you know. We don't go to the great big one. I had in my family, one of my family members was killed by the Peeping Tom serial killer. And what he would do is he would go around and look in windows at night, and he'd see a woman, and he would be aroused by her, um, and he killed her. And my family member she was the last one that he was apprehended shortly after that. And when your family gets to make a statement about how you feel or what it's like, never let him get out, kill him or whatever, that's it. But I forgave him because I understood that he was demented. Now that didn't mean like, okay, so he don't have to, go to jail. I mean, he's got to be locked away where he can never hurt someone again, And while I do have to allow that, I don't have to hate him, But my family was upset with me because they had a different view. They wanted to, they wanted him to have the death penalty. But I wasn't thinking about him in that way, So sometimes I can't say that I always felt that way, but somewhere along the line in my clear seeing cause and condition, it allowed me to take a different position. I often say that we think that evil has more power than goodness. It's just that bad people believe in their badness more than good people believe in our goodness, because the actions that come out of those thoughts, really tell the story. I believe that that all conditions are due to causes. And we create the conditions for these causes by our thoughts, speech, and action. There's not one contrary action going on right now that was not the result of somebody's thought and speech. From, I don't know, from global warming to wars to, just name anything that we humans have had anything to do with that did not come about as a result of somebody's thoughts, speech, or action. And maybe it's gotten so far out of hand that we feel like there's no hope and there's no answer, And if we feel that way now, and it can get a lot worse, what do you think is going to happen if we don't start turning that thinking around? We have to giddy up because we're coming up from the tail. But it starts right in our functional environment. We want to go save the world. I was always going overseas. I'm going to, Cambodia. I'm going to Thailand. I'm going to India. Feeding, hungry kids and stuff. We had hungry kids right here. So one day I said, I didn't even see them. They're all around. They told me, like, where? I don't see any hungry kids. And I said, just look along. You live right there along a railroad track. Is now a walking path for us. But it was a railroad track. Just look along the railroad track. That's where they sleep. Go in, look under the bank building, the parking garages. That's where they stay at night. And I went and I looked. I said, they really are homeless kids here. So we get all of our organizations together and say, we got to do something to help these kids. At that time, that was in 2004, there were 85 nonprofits in Hendersonville, 85 for a city of 10,000 people, 85. Not a one of them felt that they could help. It's not in our charter, our bylaws don't allow this. We can't do that. So I said, okay, we'll get them together. I mean, we'll do something. Of course, they lost half the Sangha because they like we ain't sign up for that. We want to hear Dharma. We didn't sign up for taking care, especially teenagers, especially bad ones. We didn't sign up for that. But that's how that came about. So I would say that's what you call a vidya. I read a story yesterday about a gentleman. And this is going to all tie in by the time I get to the end, okay? About a gentleman. And in 1866, his name is Thomas Bernardo. And he ran into a young fellow named Jim under a bridge, and he was hungry. And he gave him some bread. And he said, I'll come back tomorrow and feed you again. But when he got back the next day, the boy had died, not from hunger, but he froze. And it bothered that man so much. He was in school studying, he was going to be a doctor. But it bothered him so much that instead of being a doctor, he began to take in homeless kids. And it said that over the period of his lifetime, he took in over 10,000 homeless kids. Okay. So we don't always know what it is, what our divine spark, I will say, is. We don't always know. It might not be anything that we studied for, or anything that how we had planned to do our life. It may not be any of that. But the thing is being open for that to arise in us is the beginning of bodhicitta. And so we have to move from having a mind, just a mind consciousness around thinking, to developing the qualities that are necessary for the Buddha mind to awaken in us. And that's how we move from being ordinary human beings and we get on the Buddha path. So one type of meditation helps us to be able to understand the functional world, what we're dealing with in this phenomenal world. But there is another kind of meditation that helps us to connect with the mind stream of realizers, those who have been imbued with a vaster eyesight, with a deeper compassion. First, you got to know your mind. Yes, you do. But that's not all there is to it, because we are working to come to know the mind of Buddha, the awakened mind, which is none other than our intrinsic mind, our intrinsic nature, the one that's not attached to this self, the one that's not looking to see how something benefits me, regardless of whether it hurts another. So some things might be allowable for you to do that for me, I can't do it, because my view is such that I understand that that would hurt another. Maybe not intending to hurt. And they say, well, they just got to get tougher skin. No, but being able to work with them right where they are. And part of that has to do with thinking the best about another. If I could just do that. Or if I can recognize the enormous suffering that they must be undergoing that makes them act that way, then I could free up some of my hate energy and create a space for my vidya energy to emerge. So today I pulled something for us to begin to work with, to kind of put us into harmony with the Bodhi mind, the mind that is awakened. And before we recite it, and what I want to encourage you to do is to recite it every morning before you get going. It can even be your meditation, to just begin to sweeten, to change, to transform your mind, to expand your mind, so that one begins to think like a bodhisattva and ultimately be on the profound path of Buddhahood. So I'm going to read a couple of passages to you from the, is this Kagyu? Is Brinkun Kagyu?
I think it is.
Yeah, from the Kagyu tradition. That would be like Martha, Talopa, Milarepa, and it says
They call it the mishap lineage.
the mishap.
Yeah, because it's full of like scoundrels, and like Morepa was a murderer and then kind of found his way to Dharma. So I always loved it. Sorry to interrupt you, Venerable.
Thanks for sharing, Ron. Mighty Lotus.
And it says, let me see, page 8. And I'm going to just read this part to you.
No.
To attain perfect awakening by means of immeasurable hardships for 3 countless eons and so on is an extremely long and difficult path. Could you ask Bill to stay and let them take care of that? Thank you. Don't get distracted. To attain perfect awakening by means of immeasurable hardships for 3 countless eons and so on is an extremely long and difficult path. So that means you can roll around in samsara, endlessly, if you think that that's the only path. It says, but hence, Buddhahood can be attained in this life through the Vajra vehicle of secret mantra. This was taught by Vajradhara. Vajradhara, another name for Vajradhara is Dorji Chang Buddha, the primordial Dorji Chang. I'm not, of which Buddha Master was in the Manakaya, but not the primordial. Is everybody clear about that? I mean, because I wasn't even clear about what they were trying to say in the beginning, so I just want to make that distinction. So if Dorji Chang is the Tibetan, it's like Jesus and Yeshua, or Jacques and John. So they in different countries have different names for the same quality or manifestation appearing through the personage of beings, so that we could relate to the qualities and emulate the qualities. So whenever you hear Vajradhara, which is the Sanskrit, that's correct, right? I have to ask one of my scholarly oriented people. Then that would be Dorji Chang in Tibet. Through the Vajra vehicle of secret mantra. So he's talking about countless eons, right? If you want to go through hardships and understanding cause and effect, or there is a quick path. And the quick path is emulating the minds of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, thinking like they think. And so there are many recitations that we do to start to put that kind of thinking into our mind stream. To put that kind of thinking into our mind, and it changes our first impulse. That's why I say that the more you study, the more things that you can utilize to change your impulse. It allows you to take a minute and exhale. It allows you to step back and not jump off based on your habitual tendency, whatever's rising up for you so quickly. And it allows you to find that there is another way, that if you give it time, the mind will shift and you will think of that very same thing differently. And this is the practice that we have to go through. You just can't get this by osmosis. You can't get it by reading, but you get it by putting something different into your mind stream. And what you put in there is what comes out. What comes out of your mind right now is what you have put in there. Yes.
What we have in print was from their online printing, but what's in the Pesha, I think, uses the word Bodhi, and on the printed, I think sometimes uses the word awakening. So just to let you know, sometimes there might be a difference between what you read.
Okay. When I get to that, I'm gonna go from this sheet.
Yeah.
So we'll all do the same thing. Okay. And then he talks about there is a structure that you should follow. It says, in a secluded, delightful abode, secluded, delightful abode, request. And then he says things that you should request. So first there has to be the request. Right? Then he says, having then abandoned your faults and defects, sit cross-legged on a comfortable seat in a remote and secluded place. That could even be your room. And having performed all the preliminary branches to meditative concentration, contemplate impermanence and samsara's defects. So first is an understanding, get some understanding of how the mind works and why you do the things you do and why other people do the things you do. We've done that. We don't have to spend 20 years on that. We have to go to the next state. We have to ask for things. I'm going to give you something today, that will help you to ripen on your path if you will just use these and get these sayings into your mind stream. That's why we do the 4 immeasurables, and we're gonna be doing those today. That's a preliminary practice, because that mind stream to have accomplishment has to function or vibrate at this level. We want to do good, but we just ain't got enough oomph. Okay. Then it talks about I want to skip over some of it. By reciting profound words, you will meditate on Mahamudra, your own mind. Generally, mental activity or its absence and the existence or non-existence of arising are mere conceptions, thoughts of the mind. But then they become an aspiration. And that's a different level of commitment. And then it becomes engagement. And that's a different level. So there's the thought, there's the speech, the aspiration, right? And there's the action, the engagement. After having generated supreme bodhicitta, take up the practice of the 6 perfections. So some of us are working on the 6 perfections, but we don't even have the concepts right yet. Forget about aspiration. No need to talk about engagement. because that's like putting the cart before the horse. We like to do everything our way. We like to have it our way. We can always, before we even learn how to do something, we come up with a better way to do it. And so he says, I have taught that the suchness of your own mind is the result. That means you'll start to know, really, really know your own mind. And once you know your own mind, it doesn't matter to you much of what anybody else says about you, you know, because you know your own intentions, you know how much you put into something, and whether others see the value in it or not. You know for yourself, this is what should be undertaken by me. And you have that kind of strength and fearlessness to do your work, right? It says any type of meditative concentration accomplished by focusing or relaxing are deviations leading to higher God realms. So now he's changing your mind about something, particularly if you to kind of open you up. No, we don't see germs, but they're here, and they can certainly impact us. We don't see heavenly beings unless the Dharma eyes open. So some do see heavenly beings, but we don't. But it doesn't mean that they're not here. Matter of fact, if there were no such thing as foe destroyers, overcomers, then what in the world would we be doing this for? I mean, so you have to even decide like what you believe. Is there some benefit to this? And you could say, yes, because we'll benefit all living beings. For what reason? I mean, like, you really have to think through. You have to think through it. You know, not just flippantly say these things that'll make me feel better as a person. What me? Who is that? And what does that mean? No, so we say things that even we don't really believe all the time, and we live by it as if it's the gospel truth. We're too intelligent, like, I don't see any other being. And so he says, you know, if there isn't, then you'll have the joy of having done good. If there is, then you have the capacity to move into the states of enlightened mind. So either way, it works good for you. Either way, you win. Yeah. Listen, but if you want to know, it can be known. But for us, we call it a deviation because it's not our normal, ordinary capacity. Says, so just as water is poured into water, or butter mixed with butter, directly actualize your own primordial wisdom for yourself. And you can know it in a single instant. And it said, this profound primordial wisdom, which you will realize, will transcend the realm of speech, of thought, of human consciousness, and even of expression, being able to, it surpasses words. We don't even have the words to describe. That's why when they would come to Shakyamuni and ask him about the Dharma, he'd just say, hey, Pastor, come see for yourself. Because it supersedes the capacity of the ordinary mind to put it into words, but it can be experienced. And he says that these higher states that we can enter into are realized by those with fortunate karmic propensities. What are fortunate karmic propensities? To even hear about this aspect of the path. To know that there's something more than mindfulness of breathing in and breathing out. To know that it leads towards the awakening of something. More than how to just be happier with my things. Whether that's people, places, or things. And it relies on the path of blessings. And it is completely beyond the conceptual mind. So it is not in the domain of logicians. Habituate your mind in this. So since these profound words of advice, they're advice, it's advice, of the precious guru, and I think this one was one written by Talopa, the Lord of Dharma. It really should not be put down in writing, as I've done here. But, and now he's speaking to his masters and his teachers, owing to your encouragement, whatever contradictions or confusions there may be, because I have now spoken it, I humbly request the patience of the assemblies of the gurus and the dakinis. So he's saying basically, don't cast your pearls before swine. If people aren't ready to hear it, people don't want to hear it, should not be shared. But for the ones who do and are willing to put the work in, he says, even though we shouldn't speak of these things, I gotta tell you. And then he tells us. Now, we're up what I've given you, refuge in generating bodhicitta in stages. Is on the top end because we're already like intelligent, educated people. We maybe we are logicians, you know, we figured some things out. But now there's another step of the path. We are committed, you know, we're coming in, we're listening to the Dharma, we're allowing it to transform us. I see it in everybody. One reason is because we're learning how to solve our problems. We're learning how to be with the vicissitudes of life, the difficulties of relationships, the, you know, things outside of our control. We're able to be with something and allow it to be or let it go. We're able, you know, so we're making progress. But it's not all just for this. That kind of compassionate mind, Avalokiteshvara was not just bodhisattva or the emanation or the personification of compassion, but compassion and power. So power is not a dirty word. It's just how the power is utilized. And so he says that there are different stages, and this is the stage that some of us are at now. We can say, well, I like this and that's good enough for me. Fine, stay with that. But if there's more and you want to enter into those spheres, those states, then he's laying out the way, how to transform your mind. So I have a handout for you today. And it says, all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky. And that is to change us from just thinking about our own individual mothers, to how all sentient beings are our mothers, that they care for us. The Latino person who grows the vegetables and kindly as a mother. For the ones who are skilled at making automobiles, to the ones that build houses that we live in, to the ones that make clothing that we wear, to the ones that heal us in the hospitals, in the doctor's offices, to the, like, everything that's done for us or to us or provided to us, seeing all of those beings as our mothers, limitless as the sky. The next line says, especially those enemies who hate me. This is so that the mind doesn't dwell in enmity and become handicapped, lessened in its capacity to support and serve and maybe even change others through our own behavior. I used to be part of a deliverance ministry when I was a Christian. So we casting out demons and rebuking Satan, and we were doing all, which I'm not saying maybe he doesn't, that some of that's not needed, because there is evil in the world. But what I am saying is that's not my job now. That's not my role now. So I can't do those things now, because now I'm on a different track of learning that says, even bad folks need redeeming. That devils are sentient beings too. So maybe if I'm only a little bit good, I can't turn them from their ways. I got to be real good. And the only way I could be real good is I have to cultivate a higher set of virtues and qualities. See? So I'm not bringing anybody kicking or screaming, but for the one who wants to go, I can say, get on train B2. And the one who doesn't want to go that far, they just want to go to Asheville. They're not trying to get to DC. I'll tell them, your station is over there. All mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me. And who else? Obstructors who harm me. And who else? And those who create obstacles on my path. Obstacles. Like at some point, like if you catch a cold easy, then you have to stay out the draft, right? But if the draft leads to the outside where the people are, and you need to bring them into shelter, you got to be able to brave the weather. If you can't brave the weather, don't go outside. Wait until your immune system gets better. And those who are strong, they can go out and they can bring them in. And so those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all knowingness, what are you wishing for them? May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. Whatever's causing them to be like that, to act like that, to live in that kind of sorrow and mental degradation, you want them to be free of it. And I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious awakening. So I have to be endeavoring for the state of the most perfect and precious awakening. Thus, until I achieve awakening, so I'm acknowledging that I'm not there. I have some level of awakening, but not whatever level of awakening I have is not the level that I want. You know, it's not what I'm endeavoring for. So I'm always endeavoring to improve. I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind, reminding myself until death, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. That makes it more imminent, more present. Like when you go home and somebody yells at you, or somebody cuts you off with their car before you even get home. Until I attain the heart of Bodhi, I take refuge in all the Buddhas, all those with perfectly enlightened minds. I take refuge in the Dharma, the advice that they give us. And likewise, in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas, people like me who are endeavoring. As the precious Buddhas developed awakening mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva path, the path to awakening, I too, for the benefit of all wandering beings, give rise to a mind bent on waking up and saving living beings. That's what Bodhicitta is. And I apply myself. That's your aspiration. That's your impetus. I apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Somebody asked me one time, natural Buddhist, do you pray? You know, when you were a Christian, you used to pray all the time. Now, you're a Buddhist, do you pray? I said, well, I tell you, when I was a Christian, when I was weak, I prayed. When I was strong in my resolve, I made aspirations. As a Buddhist, when I'm weak, I pray. When I'm strong in my determination, I make aspirations. Nothing has changed. The label that y'all gave us has changed, but inwardly, nothing has changed. So I like for us to do what it says, which is repeat each one 3 times. And ask you to just try 1 month out your whole life to do this recitation every morning. I tell you, It will drop into the mind stream, but not the mind stream only. It'll drop down into your heart so that the good you would do, you can do. And what you don't want to do, you will stop doing. It will brighten, lighten, and inform your perspective of how you carry out your day and the thoughts that you allow to invade and remain in your mind. The Buddha never said certain thoughts wouldn't come to your mind, not at this stage of our development. He just said they wouldn't invade your mind and remain. So if you've been working on something, overcoming something, shifting your mind about something for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, then you can see like where you might have a little problem. When your mind changes and aligns with this, it said those unruly thoughts, while they might invade your mind, they can't remain. And you can try as you might to overcome something, you know. I have a sister, and we've been estranged for, I think about at least 10 years, but it might be 15 years. She said something that really hurt me, you know. I'm like, then you don't know me at all. And I left her house. We had a family reunion or something, Thanksgiving, something like that. And she said, yeah, you're leaving because you know it's true. But that's not why I was leaving. I left because I was hurt. I thought she knew me better than that. And we haven't spoken since, except when my niece passed a few years ago. I went to do her funeral, and my sister arranged for it to be at her church. And she asked me if I would not wear Buddhist robes because it wouldn't go down well in her church. Yeah, I can do that. And then I sat at the family table with her. And that's it, you know. And I don't really, you know, it's about, her husband would call me and he'd say, it's time for you all to like bury the hatchet. I said, I don't have a hatchet, you know. He said, but you all are sisters, you all should talk. I said, but actually, you know, it's not that we were close. It's just that I didn't think she would think that about me. You know, we'd never been that close because she was my mother's favorite child. And I was the mistake, you know, on the tail end. So we were never really that close. I just didn't think she'd think that way about me. So I said, I don't have a problem with her. She has a problem with me. She never came and asked me about it. She formed a conclusion based on something, what, I don't know. You know. But that wasn't the most egregious part. The egregious part was she posted it on, what do you call it?
Facebook.
Yeah, was that she posted it on Facebook. So that was designed to really hurt me in a way, you know, to like destroy my works. I said, you know, I have to stay away from her because she will bring Diane out, I and I did. And so that was it.
Say something.
Mhm.
I have someone in my life who's out to do me harm now that I've been nothing to but good to.
Mhm.
And I chose the same path. It's just, they say, bring your enemies closer. No,
Mm.
no. I just quietly
Right.
disappear and make myself unattainable to that person and continue to do good with all the people that are in my life. And, I accelerated all the things that I do on the good side.
Yeah. So that is a perfect example of like, it doesn't mean that you go get all your enemies, get them all in your business. It doesn't mean that at all. But I have to admit that I have to review my sense of relationship with her over and over because I'm still washing something. I want all good things for her, but I still have I still hold something. And I'm working on getting rid of it. That's what I'm telling you. It doesn't mean that we have to go and play kissy face, but this thing about knowing your own mind, that's what I'm talking about. I'm really coming to know my own mind. Because what I really want, like listen to me, since she was wrong, what I really want is for her to come to me. I have all kinds of excuses. I don't even know what to say. If you're wrong, what can I say to you? Except I don't hold anything against you. Well, obviously she doesn't care about that. So I have all my reasons, and they seem very noble and very, very pure and all of that, you know. But there's some part of Pannavati that's not willing to be misunderstood. That's what I'm saying. Can I love her as much as if she understood me? So that's the part that I'm working on. Now that might mean that I might never have a discussion with her. But you see, now I know something about my own mind. That's what I'm saying. So the power in my life to penetrate and understand the universe is dependent upon me taking care of that thing. Taking care of it with her? No. Taking care of it in my own mind. That's what I'm saying. So the truth is, when you start doing these things, all that stuff will come up. All the stuff that's buried, the stuff you say you got rid of, the stuff that you say you don't do, the things that you say you don't think, all of that's going to come up for you, and you will have to reckon with it. But it's what puts you on the path so that truly all hearts and minds are clear. Okay, so why don't we? I think let's do all of them. So we read the whole thing, and then we read it again, and then we read it again. And when you are at home with it, you can do it any kind of way you want. We make songs because that's how we remember things. We can remember a song before we can remember a paragraph of writing. So if you were to make it into a song, that's why they do a lot of chanting. The chanting is simply to help get it into your mind stream. So when we do this, because this is part of a practice that we do for raising the consciousness of the dead, and me and Bodhicitta and Kadara took transmission to do that particular practice. Now, I want to raise the consciousness of the dead. What about the living? You know, like I don't want to deal with them. You know, like I'll just deal with the dead. You know, the minds that drop the body off. I don't want to have to deal with a real person. You know, yeah, that's what I mean. You know, we want the president, the office of the president. We don't want all these other jobs. You know, we just want to go right to the top. So they chant, and it's something like, and this is not it, and I'm just going to do one line to give you an example of how you might play with it at home. But it said, all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all loneliness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. Okay, so that's how I do it, you know, but now everybody has to try to get a rhythm. They got to try to get it like, I want to go up here? Do I want to go down? So we're going to just read it now, but you can do something with it. Whatever helps you do it, that's what I want to encourage you to do. Okay? So we'll start at the beginning. All mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious awakening. Thus, until I achieve awakening, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until I attain the heart of Bodhi, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas have developed awakening mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for benefit of all wandering beings, give rise to Bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish stages of the path. All mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious awakening. Thus, until I achieve awakening, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until I attain the heart of Bodhi, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. All the previous Buddhas developed awakening mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path. I too, for the benefit of all wandering beings, give rise to Bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish stages of the path. All mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious awakening. Thus, until I achieve awakening, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Will I take the heart of Bodhi. I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma. Likewise in the assembly of Bodhisattvas. As the precious Buddhas developed awakening, we progressed on the Bodhisattva's path. I too, for the benefit of all wanderings, have lost Bodhicitta and applied myself to accomplish the states. And then just sit for 1 minute. It's just as if you're just stirring the pot, allowing your aspiration to settle into the mind. And after you recite it 3 times, you can just take one piece of a sentence and think on it. For me, I'm still at all mother sentient beings limitless as the sky. That includes everybody. It doesn't leave anybody out. All mother sentient beings. Limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me. Somebody dedicate me. And if you can make sure that anybody that was online gets it. Oh, thank you so much.
May the merit from today's Dharma be dedicated to all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on our path to liberation. May they all come to be blessed by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and the wonder and the marvelous existence of true Buddhism.
Thank you.